For whatever reason they had, Allegheny County of Pennsylvania ignored the implications of a deaf graduate of their public schools being poisoned and tortured to death for whatever reason they have. One of the berserkers, Evan Nauer, had a friend who told me, don't make what happened to you into some whole big thing. This was at a time when all of them knew that Nauer and his bedfellows were helping Trumpy to conjure a story from the whip of hidden media that Mao depicted me as obsessed with a virgin, and therefore to blame for the imaginary martyrdom of John Lennon. And I was supposed to swallow the magnitude of what Bush was doing, because otherwise I would be making a whole big thing. None of it ever makes any sense. But it's possible to sort out a little bit of what's happening when you know that. Jacqueline Kennedy has been found out for a conspirator in the murder of JFK. Kennedy's family, however, are loyal to her and loyal to the myth machine that the Beatles are spinning. So there's a lot of facilitators around Nauer who works the Green Party syndicate that murdered my father and toyed with the neuroplasm that had left me deaf and vulnerable, and copiously construing laughter around a pornographic genocide operation that Pitt secretly museum theft sold as a semester at sex experience park, like Holocaust experience park that I was kidnapped and gassed for as a little boy. And they ignore this. They ignore that this is happening. So I expect them to ignore the reference to Hazzuh somewhere in my stuff that someone leveled at me in a letter. But I think that the human rights angle of my father was considered overblown even by the civil rights movement. And the black authorities in the Vietnam War and the NAACP were aggrieved at sharing their civil rights with human beings who were less fortunate than them when from another country. I don't personally think they're needed in the human rights struggle if they feel that way, so long as enough money is spent on humane foreign policy. And the imbalance in murder weaponry is so horrifying that I spent a lot of time at Pitt News addressing that, which made me a sort of idealistocrat stereotype for them, and a laughingstock. But what I think happened is that after Arab Spring, Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, Turkey, got together with their we can do guy, Oliver Stone, behind the scenes with Putin and Trumpy Tune and Biden, Obama and Jeffin, said, look, we're calling the shots. We just need to have a drama club going in the international media whip. And Gaza was set up by Hamas for the backlash to get them out by Friday. as a warning to international human rights movements. Now, I was conspicuously kept out of school by these murderers, conspicuously poisoned and tortured for my research into Axis Hollywood. And Clint Eastwood made no secret of his gang's proximity to my being tortured by sending me a smoking gun signature photograph of his. And there's all this poaching. Like I said, they made me into a whole big thing, and they're entitled to the spoils as official museum thieves. And they monger about a penny and bystanders, and they're all very spinner beanie. One of the presidential candidates brags of being a gangster. That's how mature all this stuff is. They couldn't just tell people we found some letters, be very careful, this is a international health emergency, but we want to make clear that the people at risk will be victims of an attack and arrested the Zionists responsible. No, son, you're trying to make a whole big thing of what's just a double fantasy experience park, man. And I've always been able to do my best to document that this actually happened to a Pittsburgh public school deaf person. Anyway, they kept me out of school. Seattle was very diligent about keeping me out of school. So I couldn't study classes. I did some reading. I didn't have mentors. And a girl from Korea who has Down syndrome, and they call it gook sometimes at the deaf bar that we would go to chat sometimes. We'd drink soda. Taught me sign language. Wonderful girl. They haven't allowed me to see her any more than they let me go to school. I finally managed to get to school. I rose to the top of my class and graduated. But you can hardly blame me for not getting an education. They knew I was deaf when I was 12 years old, 11 years old. They first detected my hearing loss. They never taught me sign language. I mean, as Martha Gellhorn said of Doghouse, I always say Pittsburgh, it did no man ever any good whatsoever to cry out from this place.